Hi everyone, welcome to another Eiyuden update. We've got a bunch of new characters, some artwork, some words from the development team, and biggest news of all is that we now have a publisher on board. Let's start with the monsters then. First up is the salamander that looks like this, and the description is that it's a monster that emits heat from its skin. It feeds on some type of ore which it melts at a high temperature and takes into its body. It's a hot lizard. Pretty standard stuff for a salamander, I'd say. Then we have the savage crab. Clad in a sturdy shell, armed with a massive pincer, this waterside monster may seem like more trouble than it's worth, but the creature's meat is so savagely delicious that plenty of fishers try their luck anyway. Again, doesn't sound like anything too groundbreaking, but just padding out the world with some kind of familiar monsters is just fine by me. Next is the Rune Golem, found in ancient ruins, which I'll come to in just a second, and credited with first creating the rune lenses. Scholars are unsure as to whether the golems were meant to guard these complexes, the ancient ruins, or simply keep them well maintained. Some of the golems are crafted from exceptionally fine rune lenses and are thus very powerful. We also have a little word about these ancient ruins where the golems are found. From time to time, these ruins are discovered throughout Alvaran, and while some have been unearthed by time and fallen to decay, others remain cleverly hidden and well preserved. The ruins tend to be adorned with ornate runes, but their purpose, and that of the ruins themselves, remains unclear. And as the grounds of these ruins are often patrolled by the golems mentioned above, they can be a dangerous place to try and bring your adventuring party to. And the last of the new monsters is the Wild Boar. Not really sure how much there is to say about this guy. We've all seen them in video games before. We know what they do. It's a wild boar. Next, we have a few notes from various members of the development team. And as usual, these don't really contain any earth-shattering revelations about the game. They're more like diary entries in which the team talk about how they approach various challenges and the kinds of things they're prioritizing day to day. So I won't be combing through each line of these developer updates. I'll just mention a few of the more interesting highlights. So in an update from Junichi Murakami, the game's art director, he talks about how the tedious and meticulous nature of making lots of unique pixel art is starting to drive him insane. But even so, he's encouraging his team not to use models for creating new characters, but to make each one unique and with its own shape and features. He then says that as a way of breaking that monotony, he wanted to create something just for fun, for his own sake. And he came up with this. We don't know if this sprite will actually be used in the game or not, but Murakami has just given it to the community to share around as we please, and he calls it the epic fall of, as it's written in the English notes for this update, epic fall of Euphelius VI, which I wasn't sure, which maybe the other main Shi'ar character we know is Eupherius VII. And so I thought, oh, is this like his ancestor, like his father or something? That'd be cool. But I wanted to be sure. I looked in the Japanese notes, and underneath it, it just says Eupherius VII, like the same way that it's always written across all the other Japanese notes. And so, like the Roman numeral 7 is there. And so I think, looking back at the English version, that this Euphelius VI is just a typo on the Roman numeral, and the L instead of the R is to do with just the way that consonant is in Japanese. It's the character that it is there, ri, is like the consonant sound there is like somewhere between R and L, so this kind of translation thing does happen from time to time. So yeah, but I wanted to just mention that because I think it's hilarious that we're already dealing with translation issues. I mean, but like, would it be a JRPG if the Western audience wasn't having to like decipher their way through janky translation errors in order to understand what's going on? I mean, maybe it's just part of the charm of the genre, if you ask me. Seriously though, please do translate the game properly. Please. Next, in an update from the director Osamu Kamuta, he says that he's working on a playable prototype, including a boss battle that will show us a glimpse of as soon as it's finished. He's also taken some inspiration from his cats and the way they like to jump on his back while he's working, so we can expect to see a cat that jumps on Noah's back at some point in the game. Cool. In the next update, Kamuta says that while his team spends a lot of time discussing things like, I want this character to do this kind of attack, or I want this kind of gimmick in this location, or how can we make even the weak and common enemies interesting so they leave an impression, One of the key concepts he's focusing on is how to convey the depth of the Eiyuden world beyond just what you see on screen. And recently, one of the ways he's started to try to think about that is by using food. He and his team have come up with all kinds of different recipe ideas for food to put in the game. So it looks like that cooking mini-game might be starting to take shape. A couple of updates from the big man Murayama himself. He's still working on the core story and wants to create a scene that allows players to control the game as soon as it starts. So I suppose that means as opposed to having lengthy cutscenes at the start or tutorial sections. And he mentioned that he's thinking a lot about the pacing of the game, namely, how far into the game will the players acquire the fortress city? He's keen to make it as early as possible in the overall game time. The current challenge is thinking about the project as a whole, and while there are several good ideas in the mix about how certain systems in the game should work, the art comes in choosing the ones that will work best together and create the most cohesive gameplay experience overall. As sometimes putting too many good but disparate ideas in the same project can make the game systems feel incoherent and confusing. In terms of the game's look, there's still lots of work to be done, but we did get these couple of prototype screenshots, so we get some idea of what a cutscene might look like. Of course, the graphics, like all aspects of the game, are still under development, so this may not reflect what the final product ends up looking like, but still cool to have this early glimpse. The final couple of Murayama updates focused on how the player can really be in control of their own destiny in the game. In the February update, he talked about how he wants there to be as much variety as possible with the overall cast of characters, so that players can build whatever type of party they want. You want an all-shark party? Fine, go for it. Another way he's approaching player control was mentioned in the March update, and that has to do with resource management. I thought this part was particularly interesting, so I will just read this bit word for word. I believe that the fun of Eiyuden Chronicle and of RPGs in general comes from the element of resource management. In short, defeating enemies and earning rewards. With the money you've earned, you can buy equipment, get stronger, and then take down even stronger enemies to get even more money. In the gaming development world, we call this expanded reproduction. You invest the resources you've earned to earn even more resources. I believe that having that element scattered around in various forms is the fundamental joy of RPGs. Put in some work and you can level up, get stronger equipment, meet new companions, complete dungeons, progress through the story. In Eiyuden Chronicle, we plan to include mechanics like expanding your home base, building new facilities, new mini-games you can try your hand in, and new begomas. These are the elements we plan to provide. Each and every player has the freedom to go after whatever goals they prefer. I believe that the fun of the RPG is the culmination of these kinds of experiences. Bento are Japanese lunches packed with various side dishes you can enjoy. We want to make a JRPG that delivers the same type of experience where players can enjoy a wide variety of choices. There we go. And that's it for the development updates then. Moving on. Another exciting announcement was the launch of the Fulfillment Store. At the time I'm making this video, the store isn't live quite yet, but when it is, Kickstarter backers will be able to purchase additional add-ons to their existing set of backer rewards at the same price that they were available during the campaign. And people who didn't back the Kickstarter will also be able to go to the store and purchase many of the items that were available as rewards during the Kickstarter. So there'll be two versions of the store, the legacy version, which will only be available to you if you were an original backer of the project. Everything will be available there at the original campaign price. And then there's the regular version of the store, which everyone can access whether you back the original Kickstarter or not, where items will be available to purchase for a marked up price. And the reason for that is largely due to the fact that the backers that pledged during the campaign are the ones that made the game possible in the first place, and the team wants to continue to show their gratitude. And now for perhaps the biggest and most exciting update of the video, and that is that we now have a publisher on board in the form of 505 Games. I think this is a great fit. 505 Games has published lots of other well-known games, Death Stranding, Bloodstained, and Terraria, among many others. They are known to be a very hands-off publisher, generally letting developers make their games in line with their own creative vision without getting too involved themselves. Generally, the response to this news has been very positive. The only concerns I've seen raised are that 505 Games was the publisher for a game called Indivisible that was apparently rushed to completion and released while it was still pretty broken, and many people were disappointed. Now, the story of this game's release seems a lot more complicated than that, and I confess I'm no expert on the subject. I didn't witness any of what happened firsthand. I've just done a bit of reading into it for this video. The general consensus seems to be that any issues with Indivisible were on the shoulders of the developers and not 505 as the publisher. But, I mean, I'm not going to get into that here because it's just way beyond the scope of this video. Suffice to say that it seems to be one single blip among 505's huge track record of success stories. And of course, I have every confidence in the development team behind Eiyuden, and I think a hands-off publisher is just what they need. Another concern that many people have raised, and this isn't necessarily specifically related to the 505 announcement, just about Kickstarter games in general, is that despite early promises about all the different console versions of the game being made available, that as we get towards the late stages of development, we'll get an announcement that it's going to be a PC exclusive after all. This happens a lot because it's a lot of work to port the games to the various different consoles that have been promised, and often developers get to the late stages of development, realize they don't have the resources to produce all of the different versions of the game they promise, and opt to make it a PC exclusive release. Publishers are often in favor of these platform exclusive deals because I guess it makes more work for them as the publisher to publish and market several different versions of the game. So yeah, people have been voicing this concern a lot, thinking that this is going to end up happening with Eiyuden. The team addressed this directly in their most recent update and said, "In combing through the various backer comments, it's clear that there's a great deal of concern about Eiyuden Chronicle being released exclusively on a PC platform. As mentioned previously, we have confirmed with any potential publishing partners, including 505 Games, that the game needed to be released on PC in a non-exclusive manner. We know that some people have had bad experiences with previous Kickstarters, specifically due to this point, and we want to reiterate our commitment to releasing the game without exclusivity to any one platform." So yeah, that's what they had to say about that. Right, now, last but not least, as always, we have a selection of new characters to look at. 3 of them, in fact, so let's jump into it. First up is Wave. He's an esteemed leader in the Guardians clan. Remember Marissa? Her crew. Who is trusted and respected implicitly. He is a man of few words, but ample brawn and courage, and more than once risking his life for his comrades. Junko Kawano said that Wave is a character she's had to redraw almost more than any other at Murayama's request. Each time a redraw order came through, she thought, wow, this character is going to have a lot of screen time, or has got something special planned for him. Cool. Second, it's Dr. Cork, a professor at the University of Carles, that place, who calls himself the Spin Doctor because he just loves Begoma. Aha, I see what he's done there. He's a man of physics and is fascinated by the elusive, unpredictable movement of the spinning tops. He seeks to answer questions about whether the spinner can intentionally influence the movement of the top, and is determined to find a player who can help him answer that question. Okay. Last up, it's Barnard Sawad. He's a leader of a clan of warrior mercenaries, and his origin is listed as People of the Desert. Wonder if they'll get a more interesting name than that, or if they're just desert people. Or maybe there are various desert people clans, who knows. Anyway, as you can see, he's a dual wielder. In one hand, he has a slender crescent blade and a dagger in the other. This makes for a unique and graceful fighting style. Barnard's clan are the second mercenary group we've learned about in Eiyuden, the other being the Shiak people, and sometimes the two clans are rivals, sometimes they're allies, depends who's paying, because they're mercenaries. For Barnard, his contract is his bond, and he holds his contractual obligations higher than any other aspect of his life or his identity. Which reminds me of another character in another game series. So it seems like Barnard will be a bit less of a shady, mysterious edgelord than that guy, though. So that's it! Consider yourself up to date with what's happening in the world of Eiyuden Chronicle. Assuming you've watched all my other videos covering earlier updates, that is. If you want to come hang out on Twitch while I speedrun Suikoden, or make up some other silly challenge version of an old classic game, there's a link in the description. I'll be keeping these updates coming throughout the development of Eiyuden, so consider subscribing if that sounds like something you're interested in. Till next time then. Cheers!